Hello, everybody. I hope you all are having a wonderful and blessed day. I recently did two studies. The first study was on showing the seven different times that Jesus claimed the term I am. And the second study was on the seven signs or the seven miracles that Jesus performed, showing his divine authority. And now I want to look at the seven woes in the book of Matthew, chapter 23 here. And we'll get into this, and I want to read the whole chapter of Matthew 23, and then we'll look at the seven different woes. Okay. Matthew chapter 23 and verse 1, it reads, and I'm reading out of the New American Standard Bible, 1995. And Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees have seated themselves in the chair of Moses. Therefore all that they tell you do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds, for they say things and do not do them. So they're saying things and they do not do them themselves. They're not practicing what they preach. Verse 4, they tie up heavy burdens and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are unwilling to move them with so much as a finger. So before we go on any further, this is talking about Jesus talking about the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees. Now, some of these similarities are still being done today. We see similarities in what the Pharisees did back in the days when Jesus, God manifested in the flesh, was walking on the earth. We see the same thing in a lot of these so-called leaders, church leaders and pastors and what, so on and so forth. Okay. Verse 5, but they do all their deeds to be noticed by men, for they broaden their phylacteries and lengthen the tassels of their garments. Okay. They love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues. Verse 7, and respectful greetings in the marketplaces and being called rabbi by men. Okay. Verse 8, but do not be called rabbi, for one is your teacher and you are all brothers. So one is our teacher, that's Jesus Christ. Verse 9, do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. Okay. Verse 10, do not be called leaders, for one is your leader, that is Christ. Verse 11, but the greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. Verse 13, here's the beginning of the woes. Okay. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you shut off the kingdom of heaven from people. For you do not enter in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. Verse 14, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense you make long prayers, and therefore you will receive greater condemnation. That's the second woe. The third woe is, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you travel around on sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves. Okay. Verse 16, woe to you blind guides who say, whoever swears by the temple, that is nothing, for whoever swears by the gold of the temple is obligated. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 woes there. You fools and blind men, which is more important than gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? Verse 18, and whoever swears by the altar, that is nothing, but whoever swears by the offering on it, he is obligated. 19, you blind men, which is more important, the offering or the altar that sacrifices the offering? 20, therefore whoever swears by the altar swears both by the altar and by everything on it. Verse 21, and whoever swears by the temple swears both by the temple and by him who dwells within it. Okay. him who dwells within it. That is the temple. God that dwells within that body of flesh. Okay. Verse 22, and whoever swears by heaven swears both by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. That same him that sits upon the throne of God is Jesus Christ. Okay, there's only one throne, one God, Jesus Christ. Verse 23, this should be the fifth woe. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier provisions of the law, just and mercy and faithfulness, or justice and mercy and faithfulness, but these are the things you should have done without neglecting the others. Verse 24, you blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Okay. Verse 25, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside they are full of robbery and self-indulgence. So, you blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and of the dish so that the outside of it may become clean also. Okay. Here's another woe. Okay. Woe to you in verse 27, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs. Okay, they look good on the outside. Inside, they're dark and like a tomb. They're dead on the inside. They look alive on the outside. Okay, which on the outside appear beautiful, but inside they are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanliness. Verse 28, so you too outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. 29, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you build the tombs of prophets and adorn the monuments of righteousness. Okay, so that should be the sixth woe, if I'm not mistaken. And say, in verse 30, and say, if we had been living in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partners with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. Verse 32, okay. Fill up then the measure of the guilt of your fathers. Verse 33, you serpents, you brood of vipers. Jesus is calling these guys a brood of vipers. So he wasn't just always loving in that aspect of not pointing out somebody's error or hypocrisy or sin. Okay, he called them a brood of vipers. How will you escape the sentence of hell? Pretty darn blunt with these guys. Okay, verse 34, therefore behold, I am sending you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city. Okay. Verse 35, so that upon you may fall the guilt of all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Verse 36, truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. This is God himself that held out his hands, okay, like a hen wanting to gather her chicks in, okay? They were unwilling. This kills Calvinism. This kills determinism, okay? They were unwilling. God didn't force his hand on them. He had mercy. He had grace. He was very patient, okay? He wanted to gather their children together the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling to do so, okay? Verse 38, behold, your house is being left to you desolate. 39, for I say to you, from now on you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Okay, so let's go through these really quick. We had the first woe was exclusion. Okay, it was they were supposedly entering the kingdom themselves, which they never did. Then shutting the door to the kingdom to others. The second woe was false converts. Okay, they would travel great distances to win a single convert, only to make them twice a child of hell as themselves. Okay, the third woe was blind guides. Okay, they they were valuing to gold of the temple or gifts on the altar more than the temple and altar itself. Their priority was material over the sacred. Okay. The fourth woe was neglecting justice. Okay, maliciously tithing tiny tithings of mint, dill, cumin, while they're tithing like these little small tithings. Okay, the fifth woe, claiming the outs. It was the outer versus the inner. Okay, it's claiming the outside appearance while the inside is full of greed and indulgences. Okay, and then was the sixth woe was they were like whitewashed tombs. Okay, appearing beautiful and righteous on the outside, but being full of dead men's bones and everything that was unclean on the inside. Okay, and then the seventh one, they were murderers of the prophets. Okay, claiming they would not kill the prophets of old, while simultaneously they were plotting against the messengers of their own time. So some of these things we still see today. We're still going to see some of these people that look the part, are within what we would call the body of Christ, but inwardly they're like ravenous wolves. Okay, Paul warned before his departure that he knew that after his departure, savage wolves would come in, not sparing the flock, bringing all kinds of false doctrines and everything in, and also we're going to see persecution from what we would call within. That's going to think that what they're doing is right in the end times. Okay, there's some other woes in the Bible. Okay, Isaiah chapter 5 has 6 woes against the sins of Israel. Okay, and also there are 3 woes in Revelation chapter 13 associated with the final trumpet blasts in the end times. So hope that bless you all. And I really encourage you to study for yourselves to be approved. And I just love you very much. And God bless you. Have a wonderful day.